Hello everyone. So I came today to answer this question. Who was the mother of Tutankhamun? As you may already know, I retrieved my past life memories as Tutankhamun and as a member of the 18th Dynasty family, and through this soul galactic lineage, which is tied into the Egyptian royal bloodline, I am able to retrieve memories not only from my past life as Tutankhamun, but also from the lives of my ancestry. So when I started recalling my past life memories, it was important for my higher self to show me who my mother was. So during the nights of my memory recalls back in November of 2024, I received one of the memories, and it was the memory of my own conception as Tutankhamun. So it's similar to the concept of remote viewing or astral projection, where you can project your consciousness at a different place and also at a different time and look at what was going on that night. So I was able to, with my consciousness, to travel back to the moment of my own conception. I was in a room with both of my parents, and I saw the act that led to my conception. But the focus was on my mother. I did not see who my father was. I did not see his face per se, but I was able to look through his eyes and from his perspective to see who my mother was. And I was able to see and hear her name. And her name is Iset. The Greek name for this will be Isis. So as you know, Isis is the name of the goddess. But it's also the name of one of the queens of the 18th dynasty. And she is the daughter of King Amenhotep III and Queen Tiye. So let me show you a diagram here just to understand, because the names could be hard to keep track of. So let's see here. Let's look at this image, for example. So this is what we know so far. This is the DNA information from the genetic testings that were done on the mummies. So here you see Yoya and Thoya, father and mother of Queen Tiye, and this is Amenhotep III, who is the father of Akhenaten and the grandfather of Tutankhamun. Amenhotep III married Queen Tiye, and they had several children, one of which is this mummy called the younger lady, because she hasn't been identified. Her identity hasn't been identified, but she was, through genetic testing, proved to be the mother of Tutankhamun. So let's have a look at her mummy. You'll see it's badly destroyed. This is a gaping wound in the left side of her mouth and cheek. It was thought that this wound also destroyed part of the jaw, which had been the result of actions of tomb robbers. But examinations determined that the wound had happened prior to death. What does this look like to you? For me, this is a murder. This is somebody who has been murdered violently and brutally. And I'll tell you later why this is the case, that none of this is accidental, like ḥAW-RE is saying. ḥAW-RE considers the injury to be accidental, involving the woman receiving a strong kick from an animal such as a horse. Someone else is suggesting she was killed in a chariot crash or accident. Ashraf Selim viewed the wound as too violent to be the result of an accident. In his opinion, the lady had been injured in an act of deliberate violence. Julian Health suggests that the wound was likely the result of an axe blow. Why would anybody murder this woman? And who could be the murderer? What is the common thread that we have throughout the 18th dynasty and this family? The fact that Tutankhamun was murdered by Nefertiti I and Horemheb as a conspiracy to take over power and take over the throne, which they successfully did. After Tutankhamun died, I ascended to the throne. He was in power for about 4 years, took Tutankhamun's wife, as a wife for himself. And then after that, ʿAw-RE took power. ʿAw-RE is a military general. And since then, it has been a rule of military generals, one after the other, taking over the power of Egypt from the ancient Egyptian royal bloodlines. And that led to the gradual decline of the ancient Egyptian kingdom. So this is the front view of the younger lady. They don't know who she is, but they know that she is the daughter of Amenhotep III and the mother of time. Well, let's see how many sons and daughters did Amenhotep III have. So his children, he had several children. Thutmose, who was the oldest son, who was supposed to be the king after him, but he died. And so Amenhotep IV, which is Akhenaten, took power instead. And then you have other sisters, Setamun, Iset, and this is exactly who I'm talking about, Amenhotep, Nebeta, and then you have the younger lady, but because they don't know exactly which one she is, she kind of fell off the history. Any documentation about her disappeared after her father's death. And that is, of course, intentional. So in my memory, I have seen and heard clearly my mother's name, who is Iset. And I also know that my father loved her dearly. There was a very deep, passionate, intimate connection between the two of them. Iset, or Isis, the daughter of Amenhotep III, has been titled as the wife of the king, which was something that happened with the pharaohs back in the day. Let's see what ChatGPT says about that. So in year 34 of her father's reign, she became his wife and assumed the title of Great Royal Wife, and that is Iset. After the death of Amenhotep III, she disappears entirely from the historical record. There is no subsequent mention of her during the reign of her brother Akhenaten, and her burial place is unknown. Well, I'm here to clarify that her burial place is the burial place of this mummy, KV55. The younger lady is Iset, daughter of Amenhotep III, and she was murdered brutally. Why? Because Akhenaten loved her dearly. This is assuming that Akhenaten is indeed the father of Tutankhamun. And we don't have many options there because the suspicion is it's either Akhenaten or this other figure called Semenkhar, who kind of took over the power for several years. It was a transitory period. So there's not much known about him. But from my memory, it was my impression that it was indeed Akhenaten, but I cannot confirm that 100% because I could not see his face. And perhaps this was hidden for a good reason at the time of my recollection of the memory. So this is why it's important for me to share the memories that I do receive with absolute certainty, because I'm downloading this information as part of my process of initiation and my process of healing the legacy of this genetic timeline. So if we understand that Akhenaten had deep love and appreciation for Iset, who would be the most jealous person in the room? Of course, Nefertiti. And if Nefertiti, as we know, that she conspired to take over the rule, to start this whole Atan movement, Akhenaten didn't do it by himself. His wife Nefertiti, in fact, was leading this. They both partnered in this power shift from the Amun-Ra old pantheon timeline to this new monotheistic god called the Atan. And looking at the history of who took over the power, it was who is Nefertiti's father, who took over the power after Tutankhamun was murdered. So indeed, there was a conspiracy against Tutankhamun, against this legacy of the Amenhoteps and the Tutmosis line, to hijack the power and shift it towards this new god, this new deity called the Aten, that didn't have much to do with the old ancient Egyptian religion. This had everything to do with starting a monotheistic religion that had later translated to become Judaism, and from that it turned into Islam. So you'll see that Judaism and Islam both have that common Saturnian legacy of monotheistic worship and bowing down to the Saturnian cube, which you see on the hats of the Jewish rabbis, as well as the Kaaba for the Muslims. But let's just focus on who Tutankhamun's mother is. I have no proof to prove that KV-35 is indeed Iset, who is the daughter of Amenhotep III. But what I do know for a fact, based on my memory, is that Iset is indeed the mother of Tutankhamun. And if she is indeed the mummy, if indeed her mummy is the KV-35, it would also prove that she was murdered brutally, knowing that Nefertiti was jealous and she didn't want competition when it comes to her rule and authority, because that would make Iset, who is the sister of Akhenaten, the queen regent when Tutankhamun ascends to power after his father. And she didn't want that. She wanted to rule. Would Iset have posed a threat to Nefertiti's power-hungry pursuits? If she was still alive and the mother of the only royal heir of Akhenaten, would she have then been queen regent of Egypt and not Nefertiti? So let's see, if Iset was, he's saying, yes, this is correct, then her existence would have been a direct threat to Nefertiti's authority. If Iset was alive after Tutankhamun's birth as a full daughter of Amenhotep III and Tiye, Iset outranked Nefertiti in bloodline status. If she was Tutankhamun's mother, then she would have been the mother of the royal heir. In Egyptian tradition, the king's mother carried enormous influence, especially if the heir was a child. I think he means if the heir was a boy. That role would normally position her as queen regent until Tutankhamun came of age. Nefertiti's position, Nefertiti was great royal wife of Akhenaten, but her origins were not as high-ranking as Iset's, most likely Ai's daughter, not royal blood. Her power during Akhenaten's reign came from visibility in art and religion, depicted almost as a co-ruler, possibly ruling as pharaoh after Akhenaten, if she is in fact Neferuaten. If Iset had lived to see the Tutankhamun succeed, Nefertiti's role would have been secondary to Iset's. So if Iset was Tut's mother and survived Akhenaten's death, she, Nefertiti, would logically become queen regent. And Nefertiti's ability to position herself as ruler would have been blocked. Therefore, Iset's disappearance from the record fits a scenario where her death, possibly violent as the younger lady's injuries suggest, removed an obstacle to Nefertiti's political dominance. So this fits the picture that Iset was in fact violently murdered, and if KV-35 was indeed her mummy, then look at this. This looks like violent murder to me. And the fact that we don't hear of her after her father died and after Akhenaten rose to power is another proof that she was intentionally erased from history to hide and suppress this information. And you know who else was part of the royal family that was brutally murdered / assassinated, making it appear like an accident? That was Princess Diana. And in fact, Princess Diana is the mother of Tutankhamun. And let me tell you this, because souls that come from royal bloodlines have a tendency to reincarnate as part of a royal bloodline family. Doesn't have to be the case. But in Princess Diana's case, she not only reincarnated and became a wife to the king, to King Charles, but she also, when she got divorced, she was dating an Egyptian businessman, Dudi al-Fayed. And that is another clue to, of all nationalities, of all people, she went out to date an Egyptian and she fell in love with an Egyptian. And that can just show you a little bit of the longing of that Egyptian connection. And I have no idea who Dudi al-Fayed was in a past life, or if he was anybody of importance. It is possible that he was, but I do know for sure that Iset, who is the daughter of Amenhotep III, reincarnated as Princess Diana. And I've seen that in my vision. It was very clear. And for me, it's undeniable, because when you reach a level of consciousness and you look at somebody, you do not only see their meat suit, so to speak. You do not see the outer, you see the inner. You see the soul signature, and that soul signature carries forward from meat suit to meat suit. And it doesn't matter what bloodline, it doesn't matter if her skin was brown and now she's white. Her eyes show her soul, and it was indeed Iset that was my mother. It's possible that Tutankhamun never saw his mother when he was alive, but the reason that I know this information is I'm able to go through the timeline of my family and replay some of these memories and see them by the astral projection. And she was, when I looked at her face in the memory, she had the same smile and the same look in her face that Diana has. Whenever she would look like a certain way and she would look down, and her demeanor and her soul signature was very much the same. And what's really incredible is, before my awakening, before I remembered who I am, I would have dreams about my mother, who is my genetic mother in this life. My mother and Princess Diana sort of merged in my dream. I would take notes of that in my dreams, and I've only checked that by coincidence. And it was another way of the subconscious just translating the information about this woman, like making her, bringing her closer into my field of vision, like with this familiarity, right? But this was only confirmed after I recalled my past life memories as King Tut, and that's when I was able to see and make the connection that this woman, whose name is Iset, who was the daughter of Amenhotep III, who is the sister of Akhenaten, is the mother of Tutankhamun, and is Princess Diana reincarnated. So it shouldn't surprise you to know that both of these ladies, both of these princesses, had pretty tragic endings, and they were both assassinated because of power games and because of political reasons. So I hope you like this video. Check the Patreon community, ʿAW-RE Galactic Emissary, and if you feel called to join the inner circle, would be happy to have you. And I will see you in the next video.